All right, hi everyone. Welcome to my presentation about career services at the university. We have a couple people just trickling in, so while that's happening, in order to make this not just a presentation where I talk the whole time, I've got this polling thing set up, and I used it last year and it worked. You know, do you get nervous when you see some kind of technology thing that's fancy? I do, but it worked and it seems to be working. So all you need to do if you want to participate in the polls is pull out your phone, and then in the I'm going to say this real simple because I mixed it up. In the to place, put those numbers, and then in the message place, put career services, all one word. And in just a second, we'll let you guys work on that for a second, and then we'll get going. Are people getting in okay? Give me a thumbs up if you're in. We see some thumbs, that's good. All right, I think it's time for us to get going. So, again, Sarah Newberg, my job is I'm the Executive Director of Career Services Administration at the university. And so what that means is I'm in an office that coordinates career services across the system. And that doesn't mean we deliver all the career services, though, because the University of Minnesota is a decentralized career services model. We like it that way. We think we offer better services when the career centers are in the colleges attached to the students, because the staff then in the career center really get to know the faculty, the programs, the students, the student groups, and can tie all that together. But my office does some work to coordinate and bring those centers together around common projects and takes on some other initiatives that kind of go beyond what the career centers can do on their own. So a little bit about my office. Okay. Why are we here today? I always like to start with this slide to just talk about our poll of students when we ask, what are the factors for you in deciding a major? And I'm always happy to see intellectual curiosity at the top. Who doesn't want students coming in who are excited to learn? But right behind it is, and it's been this way for years, is that next one, preparing me for a fulfilling career. So I assume that's why many of you are here. We know that's why our students are on this campus. And I always think it's interesting too that third one, a high-paying job, is trailing quite a lot further behind, actually. So everyone has their own goals and values about what they want to do with their career, but we know that just that idea of finding something to do in the future that's going to be fulfilling is really an important thing for our students. So let's get out these phones and see how the polling works. I want to see if you can provide in your chat one word that describes how you as families are feeling about your students' career future. So students, I know we have some students in the room too. Let your families respond to that, and let's see where they're at in all of this as a group. Results are coming in. This is always so exciting when it works. And
what's the presenter name?
The presenter name in your text, if you text to that number in the to column, and then you send the word career services as a message, it will tell you you're in, and then you'll be able to answer the questions. It's not working?
They sent me to pollev.com. It says join presentation and username.
I think you might be in the administrative side of the thing. I would start over with just a new message and see if that'll get you there.
It's all in the text, so it's not a website.
Yeah, don't click on a website. I did that same mistake when I was trying to set mine up to test it, so hopefully that helps. We'll move ahead with this, and you'll be able to join for the next poll question too, because we'll have others. And for those coming in, we'll catch you up in just a second. But what we've just done is ask people to talk about a word that describes how they're feeling about their students' career future. And this is such a typical kind of mixture of emotions, right? I should have mentioned this too. I'm in your shoes now. My daughter's a freshman in college, and I'm seeing this with totally new eyes now, and I'm feeling all these same emotions. It's just, I'm so excited for her when things are going well. I'm so worried that that could change at any moment. And, I'm, trying to keep my distance, but also be supportive. So this mixture of emotions, I think what I want to establish from this question is just to normalize that that's real, that we who are in the family or support role of our students, it's a process for all of us to go through. And so I think that hopefully gives you some kind of affirmation that your emotions are real. Also, I'm finding another thing that I'd forgotten about for a few years I think might be helpful as we're thinking about this, which is that all of us, students and parents, and families and supporters are going through an adjustment curve. So an adjustment curve is a normal thing that happens anytime there's a change in life, like, a new member of the family or new relationships. You go through kind of a honeymoon period where it's really exciting. And then it's pretty normal for there to be a little bit of a dip in that curve, maybe even a little bit of negative kind of feelings about the adjustment, and to stay in that place for a little while. It's kind of a transitional process that happens. And if you work through that, typically you come out on a more stable kind of normal path, and then that's the end of that adjustment period. So I'm finding that I've been kind of in that trough of the adjustment myself personally, so I'm guessing others are. I'm seeing it in my daughter and her college experience as well. So I think it's good to just know, oh, that's another normal thing that happens. So we have excited and uncertain and concerned, and there's positive and negatives, and that's all part of it. So I'm going to try to share some things today that help think more about this and maybe just take some of the anxiety parts of that result out. I'm going to talk about a few things. I'm also going to encourage you to share some of your experiences here when we get further along. But what I want to talk about first is 5 habits of successful grads. And what I noticed after about 10 years of doing this work, I'm at about year 20 now, but 10 years ago or so, I started to notice, the students that are kind of having that easy transition out from college to career, which is the space I really work in, there's some patterns in the things that they are doing. And so I'm going to share those with you one by one, and also identify some of the resources that we're offering at the university to address some of those. So here's the top 5. I'm going to take them one at a time. Number 1, just get involved with things. And I'm sure we've heard this before, but I want to say a few things about why this is so important. And first of all, here's probably our most important link that will help you get there. This session is being recorded, so if you want to pull up these links later, feel free. Also, if you haven't learned this tip yet, this is still how I navigate almost everything at the university. I would put Gopher link UMN into my search, and that almost always works to pull up anything you want at the university. So if you want to get back to this. But this is our source of student organizations, the thousands of student organizations that exist here at the university, and a nice search mechanism for students to find student organizations that are related to their interests or to their career goals or just stuff they want to do to meet other people and feel like they have kind of a community here at the university. Speaking as a career counselor, the reason that this is so important, though, is that we know very well what our employers are looking for when students graduate, and it's summarized in this graphic that comes from the National Association of Colleges and Employers, where employers have come together and said, here's the main things we're really looking for in our new grads. And in some fields, this is almost enough, just like be a really well-rounded, good person in these areas, and employers are going to be excited to talk to you. There are some fields where you will need some technical expertise as well. You can imagine engineering, medicine, some of those fields, accounting probably, where you really have to have a body of knowledge as well. And in those fields, these are still very important to be successful in the career. So we know that these are skills that are developed throughout the college experience, but especially in those student organizations where if students can get involved, take on some role where they're having to work as a team, where they're getting a chance to provide some leadership and do some problem solving. We're really emphasizing this more and more in our classroom instruction. So that's one of the reasons that we really encourage to just take that step, encourage your students to get involved in just one thing and get involved, not just on a surface level, but really dig in and get involved. All right, we're going to have another poll here. So for those who are joining, if you want to join in our polling, this is through your cell phones, and you type in the 37607 number in the to box of your phone, and then you send the message Career Services, and you'll be able to join us in our polling. And if you can't catch up on this one, we'll bring you in for others. All right, what best describes your student's career status? We're giving you a chance to answer that here, A, B, or C. Just type an A, B, or C into your phone, and we'll see what we end up with. Give you a little chance to answer. And I think we're going to have B as our top answer. We'll watch as that shifts around a little bit, but that's pretty common result. We know students coming in are still really figuring this out, and that's a very normal place to be. Now, if you are someone, the students or the families here, if you are someone where I really feel like I've thought this through and I know what I'm doing, that is great. There's more we can talk about for you too. But for most, really, the majority of our entering students, it's very common to say, I kind of think it's something like this. I kind of think it's in healthcare. I kind of think it's in science, and it's kind of fuzzy. And then we want them to spend their first couple of years really exploring and experimenting with that to clarify that, which we hope will happen ideally by graduation, but sometimes that continues into our lives, and I'm sure there's people in here who could talk about how that goes on throughout your life, right? So, still in the deciding process, let's talk about some of the resources for those that are still working on this. So, what I want to emphasize about this is one of our career learning goals for the university. We want students to learn to develop a career plan, and I emphasize the word learn because it's something they're going to do repeatedly throughout their lives. So there's a lot of ways that we help students do that. One is we offer, every student at the university has a career counselor available to them who will just sit down one-on-one and help them think about this. And so I just want to emphasize this. They're all in the colleges or the career centers that are scattered throughout our system. I'll show you later how to get to those. And all it takes is usually clicking on a website. I don't think anyone's using a phone anymore for this. It's generally a website. And you can, voila, have an appointment with a qualified career counselor. Now, we wish more students would go see the career counselors. You might think, oh, that's really busy. There's a lot of students. And we have, I think, a well-staffed career center staff around here. But generally, students can get in within a week or so. And one of the reasons I think we learned that students don't go in, we just kind of learned this from talking to students, is that it's like, I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what to ask. And there's a sense of, oh, I need to have a question before I can go in there. I'm just not ready yet. So I just want to say, you know, the people who do this work are trained professionals, and they know how to start these conversations with students. So it's just fine for a student to go in and say, I love this when students do this I'm not actively working as a career counselor, but when I was doing that, and they would come in and say, I just want to establish a relationship with you and just get to know you. And I would love that. And then we would have a good conversation and take it from there. So just be aware that exists for you. The other way that's really great, and it's really becoming more common, is most of our colleges have a career course. And those that, well, almost, can I say all? It's really almost all. I should do that assessment. What I was going to say, though, is most, I would say 70 or 80% of your students will probably be required to do this, so you can't escape it. And those that aren't required, it's an option, and you just have to go ask your career counselor where to tap into that. And so these are courses that just walk you through the whole process of what you need to know to prepare for your career. So we really encourage students to dig into that. Students tell us often this is the best course I took. It really helped me both figure out what I want to do and have the skills for implementing whatever that is as I'm looking for internships or full-time positions. So take a look at that. Have your students search that out through their career centers if they can't find it any other way. I know some of you might have been at the last presentation. ONET is a federal website. If nothing else, this is a great way to just get information about careers. It does have a skills assessment, which is a nice starting point. You can search for careers by skills. You can learn how much salary the career will bring in. You can find actual openings around the country. So I always want to point out that resource. There's a lot of other resources like this, but this is probably the best one. So keep that in mind. And then I know that some of you may have been just at this presentation which preceded me, but the Center for Academic Planning and Exploration is the place where students would go if they just can't figure out what their major is. So, major is tied to career, they're related, they're not exactly always a complete overlap, but a lot of times that's the stressor for students is I just know I have to make this decision and I'm not sure what I want to do. Again, just an excellent staff, and they also offer courses and assessments and one-on-one counseling for students. The next thing is to build experience. So with some decisions, hopefully, or tentative decisions, or even really beginning decisions, I know that I just am trying to get my own kids to just, stop working at the fast food store and go somewhere that's a little close to what your interests are, even if it's just in the same environment. So starting to think about how can you get exposed to more of the experiences that you're interested in. Let's just take a look at this for a moment. Another poll. Which of the following is most important to employers when they're evaluating candidates? The first one, leadership experiences, basic work experience, internships, or major. Let's see if I can shift that down. Ooh, I love watching this dance around. Just when I think I know what the answer is going to be, it changes. It didn't start out right, but it's ending up right. I'm going to just tell you now, the rest of you can vote correctly. This is from a survey of our employers. We have a great survey. This is one of the great things about being at the University of Minnesota. We do a survey of our employers that post on our job posting system, and we ask them a whole bunch of questions. So that's really something you should know. Our career counselors here are working off real data that we get from our employers. We're not just making up stuff. We have reasons to give the advice that we do around here. Number one was previous work experience. And I just find that really interesting. So, we hear a lot about internships, but what our employers are really saying is just getting that basic experience is important. And then when we get into professional experiences or professionally related work experience, those are a little down the list, but still really important. And what we find it's whether or not it's an internship. I am a huge fan of internships, but what's really important is experience that's somewhat related to the goals as far as you can go with that. And some students are still deciding, so it's still kind of a guess. Some students go out and get related work experience and then decide, ooh, that is definitely not what I want to do, which is great to figure that out earlier than later. And some students just take a total pivot and they find out through a student job or through who knows what, a hobby. It can be almost anything that they've got other interests. So I think if we polled this room, we'd find people found their way through lots of different methods. So we're putting a lot of energy right now into working with student employment, and so I will be trying to integrate. We know student employment actually can be such a great way. I mean, the University of Minnesota has jobs related to communications and accounting and research. So I encourage your students, if they're going to find a part-time job, I would really argue that they consider on-campus employment before off-campus for a few reasons. One, there are really a lot of really great opportunities. Two, we're really working with our supervisors, and increasingly so, to be good advocates to the students. Our supervisors know this place. They can be guides to what's going on around here. They're very supportive. They're very student-focused. They often can be more flexible around finals or other needs that students might have. So you might get paid a couple dollars less an hour maybe, but I'm going to argue that that might be worth it. Just think about that. The other thing I just want to mention, of course, we do have a job posting system. It's Handshake. This is where people say, people go to the career centers to ask, hey, do you have a job related to such and such? We don't hide them, we put them here. We insist everyone from our outside employment community post their jobs here so that it's equitable. Everyone finds out about the jobs that are available. It's also where we promote our career fairs and other events. So there's a lot of good information. That's really an important system. Students should, if you haven't gone in there and started out your profile, it's machine learning. It's magical how Handshake can somehow, like so much of our web world now, can know, oh, you're taking a class in such and such, maybe you're interested in this job. So really just get those profiles filled out as a starting point. It's like any other profile, it's not that hard to do. And then of course, learning abroad, when we're talking about experience, can be a transformational experience. And a lot of our learning abroad programs do offer internship experiences. And you would think, how good could that be abroad? I got a really good opportunity a few years ago to go look at the programs in Italy, and I couldn't believe how good those internships were. I mean, they were working in hospitals and retailers and doing social media, and it was really very impressive. So give that some thought if you're going to go abroad. Next thing is to build connections. We know that's another thing that students do when they make a successful transition, is that they build connections. That could be with professors here on campus. We hope that students will start to make those connections outside of campus with our employers or our alumni. So we offer a lot of career fairs, a lot of other events beyond these career fairs that are just a way for students to network or learn about career opportunities. Really want to encourage students from first year to go to those fairs. In the first year, it's great because you don't have a lot of pressure to be looking for a full-time job. You can go and explore. We always have students who go to these and say, I did not think I would want that job, but now that I've talked to that recruiter, wow, I'm really interested, or vice versa. So it's a really good chance in those early years to explore opportunities and just get the feel for it before they might be more actively searching. And also there are employers that offer internships or other related work to students at these fairs, even in the first year. So the Maroon and Gold Network is a resource I want you to know about. It's our alumni who say, I loved at the U and I want to give back, and I would love to meet with a student and just tell them what my job is like. And so it's so easy. You just go in there and look for someone that's doing something you're interested in, and you contact them, and they you can search on whether they're willing to do informational interviews, and it's a way for you to make those connections. And then last, I just wanted to mention, because I mentioned it earlier, students that are successful use their resources on campus, and I'm going to put a plug in especially for our career centers, which I've kind of already done, but here's the website for our central, the office that I support, and if you click on that, you will see the list of all of the career centers and a simple link to get into their websites, and more than likely on that first page, you're going to see that how to make an appointment link. So that's a good one. If you forget it, again, Career UMN, super easy way to find it back. So, and I think that's enough on that. Oh, one other, if there's people here interested in healthcare, we have such a great resource on campus for pre-health students. They have, as you can see, information about all kinds of different health careers. They have courses for people who think they want to be doctors. There's just so much there. If you're thinking about healthcare, you just really need to look at that site. One thing that's not on my list is GPA. Now, GPA can be really important. There are some fields, again, where the content knowledge is really important, like, again, accounting, engineering are the two that kind of come to mind. There certainly would be others, not that many though, but this just shows, again, a poll of our own hiring employers. 60% of them say that GPA is not a factor. I should have had the students close their ears before I said this, probably. So, you know, we want you to work hard and learn a lot because learning is important, but we just want to be sure that students don't get discouraged and kind of overly focused on GPA. So I'd rather be working with a student who has a 3.0 GPA, has been a involved student on campus, has some kind of work experience that's kind of giving them some skills and kind of helps with that transition. That's a marketable student. So enough on that. Okay. So I've been telling you all our resources, the big ones at least. There's a lot. This is the thing I just love about working here. We really have resources at the university, and so they're there, take advantage of them, encourage your students. That's why I'm talking to parents, is just to be our partners in helping to support all those good resources that are out there. But what I want to talk about now is how can you support your students and kind of be our partner in some of the career work that goes on. We know that students are likely to consult you along with, not quite as much as their friends and peers, I'm afraid, but, but families are an important part of their network and a place that they go for career advice. So we hope to work with you. So I'm going to say a few things about just the student experience. And, you know, I know when I had my kids and they were little, I worked so hard to understand child development, to know why are they having temper tantrums when they're 2. And really, we're still in a developmental process here. So students are still in a developmental process, and the one of the theories that really has stood the test of time is by Arthur Chickering. So we're going way back 50 years ago when that theory was established. But I think just looking at this to know, here's what, for both families and the students to know, oh, this is kind of what's going on while in college, in those traditional college years. Learning to manage your emotions and focusing on how can I be competent. And this is can go in this order, I guess. I won't go deep on that, but who am I as a person? What is my purpose? Those are all the developmental tasks that students are working on generally, not just in career development. If we turn to career development, we kind of have a cycle that we work with, and actually right now at the university we're looking at creating new career learning outcomes to be very specific about what are we teaching related to careers on campus. But it almost always comes back to some kind of a model like this, knowing who you are as a person, values, motivations, skills, interests, all of those things. A lot of assessments available to help figure that out. And then knowing the outside world. To me, I still remember this from when I was a student. I'm sure many of you do. When you're 19, how the heck do you know what's going on out there? How do you know what these jobs are like? How do you even know about jobs that you've never encountered? Even if you know of them, like what a teacher is. Is the job what you think it is? So there's just so much to learn. So we want to help students figure out how to explore that outside world and start to kind of expand ideas about that and not be too narrow initially, and then make decisions about where to start taking some action. And when I say start taking action, this is a cycle. It should have, some of these do, and it should have arrows around because it keeps going around. You take an action like a part-time job, and then you learn more, and you take a different action as you reassess all of that. So that's our career cycle. Let's talk about this, though. The world of work, I think it's important to know it has changed, and I'm sure you're aware of this, but let's just think about this in terms of our students. So grab your phones again. Let's hear your opinions about this. What are some of the things that are different about the world of work today than 25 years ago, when some of you may have been going through some of this process? Okay, what have we got here? It's ever changing. Whoops, I don't know if I'm going to be able to figure out how to run this. We're seeing a lot of technology. I think I might have, there we go. More technology. Technology, everyone's talking about technology. It's very different, isn't it? I think we're coming out of the COVID years and we're just realizing the impact. And of course, AI, ChatGPT, remote work, just the variety of options that people have. It is ever changing. Very good. Thanks for those comments. And I'm just going to follow up on a couple of them. So I won't talk through all of this, but we do certainly know globalization, the gig economy, how jobs are going to be chunked out is going to be different. I always think we're in a situation where there's just a lot of mental health concerns, and so as career staff, we're more and more gearing up to be sure that we're addressing those issues, and as a campus doing a lot of work in that area. But I think one of the current, this is a pretty recent theory, recent compared to others in the last 10 or 20 years, It's officially called the chaos theory of careers. This is a work of Pryor and Bright, if you want to take a closer look at it. But this really is pretty descriptive of the world and why it's kind of a tough process now for students to make all these decisions. Because of what many of you were saying, that there's constant change, there's a lot of chance, and there's a lot of complexity. And so managing in that kind of an environment. Now, when I was teaching, I would tell students about this and I would think, oh, maybe I shouldn't talk about this because it kind of bums people out a little bit. But the students reacted like, no, you're just telling us, you're just validating what we're seeing, which is that this is normal, that there is a lot of change, and how do you manage in a situation like this? So I think acknowledging that we are going to be in a time where some of those skills that I mentioned earlier are really important, because we're going to rely on those skills that are that transfer from one setting to the other, and be comfortable with the fact that those skills are going to be what are valuable as you move through the process is really important. Kind of being in a learning as one of the competencies is really increasing. Employers are looking for people who are learning oriented. I just saw a new version of these polls where that just keeps coming to the top. Critical thinking and problem solving keep going to the top. This is why college degrees are, despite all of the news out there, still resulting in higher earnings and satisfaction, we're learning as well, compared to others. So compared to not having the college degree, I should say. So a few thoughts on that. There's a lot more online if you want to delve into that. The other thing is where college students work, and I think this is something we really have to think about. It's really a tough one, but this is a model that is actually a live model if you go out to the US Census. I haven't seen them update this yet, so this is from 2010. But it just shows the college majors on the left side and the occupations on the right side. And you can play with this online. It's really fun because you can click on any major and you're going to see those lines go to every different imaginable career. And the result of the same data is that essentially 25% of people are working in their major. So I find that hopeful. I feel like that gives students a lot of flexibility, that they're not locking themselves into one more thing. But maybe it's also a little of a challenge to know that there's just more choices to be made out there. Okay. All right, I want to move on to just thinking a little bit more about how to be supportive in this kind of an environment. So what I want you to think about here in this one is going back to your own transition when you were in your early 20s, whatever that was, whether it was college or entering your career or field or job or whatever you were doing at that time. What was it someone, oh no, first answer. How did a family or friend help you navigate as a 20-something? Ooh, they gave money. Networking, internship support. Great. They pushed. Ooh, that's an interesting one. We're going to let that keep going a little bit. It's hard to move when it's moving around like that. Quit. I don't know what, oh, don't quit. Someone said don't quit. They split up the words. Education. Is everyone voting for didn't? What's going on out there? Oh, that's not good. It might be right though. You know, I know that, I gotta watch my time here a little bit. I know I'm gonna get in trouble here, but I know, I don't know how it was for you. My mother had a mother who was a meddler, and she tried to control everything she did. And so my mother swung the other direction and wouldn't do anything to give me advice. She didn't want to do that to me. And it was not good. It was not helpful. I needed a little advice at that point. So what I wanted to say that I expected to come up in this slide is one of the things that I think is our task is to figure out how to build that balance of challenging our students and supporting them and knowing when to do which is quite a dance and feat of art, really. It's not science, is it? And I'm guessing that's happened, and it depends on the student. It depends on the student's needs. Students, you can take this for your own advice and think about that for yourself. When do you need to challenge yourself? When do you need to get out of your comfort zone? When do you need support from others? So balancing that out. People are still voting. I'm not sure how this is working. It's maybe everyone's voting for didn't and money. So anyway, so think about that. If you have support and no challenge, you don't grow. If you're doing everything for someone and they don't start to use their own skills to do things, obviously there's no growth. If there's no support, it's hard to grow too, right? So thinking about that balance, and I'm seeing a lot of that come up in these answers where there was support for people, that idea of maybe giving money or giving advice or providing expenses and encouragement, all these positive things that are in here. And then there's the things like pushing or, just maybe having to provide a little bit more structure for people. Wow, this is a really cool list. Anyway, I'm going to move on. So let's do one other though. So what I wanted to do with that last one was to have you just start kind of getting that empathy from your own lives about how it felt to be in that place and what was helpful. And so the idea that some people maybe didn't feel they had the support is in itself an important message. But anyway, I also want you to think now as family members, what have you done in support of your students' college or career planning that seemed to work? So I'm hoping maybe a few of you might be willing to share here at this point so that we can learn from each other. Honestly, I kind of need to learn from you. I haven't got this all down as a parent. It's so different to be up here this year when I have a real student in college than it was when I was just giving career advice, I got to tell you. So it's harder than it looks. I understand that. But I'm going to tell you a couple examples just to get you thinking. One thing that and I do have the problem, I just really want to give my daughter a lot of advice, and it absolutely does not work with her. My son, who's a year behind, he will listen and consider that and make his own decision, but not my daughter. So it's been a lesson for me to learn to just stop talking and find other ways to get her talking. But one thing that I did that I think was helpful, she decided when she was 15 that she wanted to be a nurse. And if you know the Myers-Briggs, she's a J. She's a judging type. She makes decisions and clings to them, and she does not give up. And so she was going to be a nurse, and darn it, nobody was going to tell her not to be a nurse. And I kept kind of saying, I'm really excited about you wanting to be a nurse, because I actually think she'll be a great nurse. But it's okay if you decide not to be a nurse, too. And it was just, and then she would say something like, you don't want me to be a nurse. And it was always it didn't work great in the moment. But it did, I think she has now started to wonder about that a little bit. And then, I think that's good. So now I'm having my own emotional reaction to, but I told all my friends you were going to be a nurse and they thought that was so cool. So I'm just admitting the realities here, right? But no, so now she's talking about maybe chemistry, who knows? But I'm really glad that she had that freedom. Maybe it came from me or I don't know where it came from, to maybe back out and make good decisions, because we don't want to lock people in to decision just because they made some decision at age 15, right, without exploring that. So why don't you think about that a little bit? What are some of the things that you have done or said or students could share? That would be brave. What you've heard from your family members maybe too that has been helpful. Anyone willing to jump in? Thank you for being brave. It always takes that first one. Do you want to? We'll run the mic around, I guess, so people can learn from you. Okay, we'll go to her. We have two. Yay! Just wait. 1, 2. So Samsung. Oh, okay. That's good to know. Luckily, we're at the end. You can shout your answers out too. Hang on. Okay. Hey, let's hear.
I hate talking about. Okay, I just wanted to say that I learned the same thing with my daughter that you did with yours, with regards to just not speaking, because I would try to be helpful and offer suggestions, and it was always interpreted like, you're judging me, or you don't agree with me, or, why don't you think that's a good idea? You never think I have a good, and I'm just like, oh Lord, this is gonna be a long year. And so I literally I had strong suspicions into what job or career major she should do. And I had to bite my tongue and bite my tongue and bite my tongue. And she got here and she started taking certain classes that I knew she would like because she was in the business school and she was going to go one direction in the business school. And I was like, she's not going to like that. And sure enough, first 3 weeks in, she's like, I really like these other classes. And I'm just sitting there going, thank God I did not push that so hard, because I'm afraid that if I'd been the one who pushed it, she would never in a million years have agreed to take the class, even to find out if she liked it. So I bit my tongue a lot. It's turning out okay. My husband says I'm never going to let him hear the end of it, of how I was right. But, so be it.
I love it. A great story. It's very affirming for me, at least. I hope for others. Can others share ideas?
My son here is going to be mortified that I'm speaking.
Yeah, it's all right. You can slink down. It's all right.
I think learning to, yes, let him figure out his path and trying to back off and bring in my own experiences and just let him fly and figure it out and be there if he needs us.
Oh, that's literally the title of a book I'm going to show in a minute. I'm there. You're on your own, but I'm there if you need me. Yeah, perfect. Others? What else have we learned from all of this?
Something we learned in co-parenting a lot of years is that make a suggestion and then walk away, because they will make it their own. I catch a teenager's first reaction is, "No, you're dumb."
Yes, that's absolutely right.
But if you just say it once and then kind
Put
of
it out
walk
there.
away, it becomes theirs, and they bring it back to you. And they're like, "Hey, there's this." And you're like, "Yeah, that's pretty good."
You thought of that, didn't you? Yeah, that's good. That's awesome.
Yeah, it works on men too. And nextly, as far as directly into the question, we've been supportive all the way through, and I think COVID was very interesting in how this class was ninth graders. At least the freshman class this year was ninth graders when the lockdown happened, and it was a transition for everybody. And I think just the supporting of their thoughts, their feelings all the way through really opened up a lot of doors.
That's great. Yeah, I like, we talk around here about assets-based approach, and there was a lot of things COVID caused on both sides, but yeah, there may be some bright spots in students' ability to be flexible and empathetic, and I have seen some really lovely examples of that from the students I've been teaching, in addition to all the difficulties that we know about. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear what you might think about this approach. And I just kept it really broad with our daughter, and I said, if you can find something that comes to you easily, more easily than others perhaps, and that you also are interested in, stay on your strength. Don't try to learn everything and become super challenged. If you find something you're good at, try and explore that, and maybe it'll work out. Just be the best at that.
Yeah, you're just encouraging self-awareness, which was in that wheel. That's exactly right. And you can play a big role as parents in that. And I'm going to tell this story because I was thinking about this with my mother too as I was preparing for this. I can remember a situation while I was in college, and I was probably saying something like, I can't get a job, and I was probably saying something hopeless to her, and she said, Sarah, you can do this. You are a strong leader. And honestly, I don't even know what she said, but she listed off like 4 or 5 skills that she saw in me. I mean, we know people we've been living with, right? So she just listed off what she saw. And of course, what did I say to her? What do you think I said? You don't know anything, right? I totally told her that she was wrong and didn't know anything, but I was listening, and I am old now, and I still remember that conversation. So sometimes you don't know what's having an impact, and I know I'm talking to the families here, but students think about how you do that for yourselves and with each other too. That's great. Other comments? Because it's really fun to hear your own versions of this. Got a couple more.
So one of the big reasons my son is here, my niece just graduated, and she's staying on for a master's degree. So just having my son teamed up with a well-experienced older student is great, because he's coming from a smaller town in Montana to the big city here. So things are going pretty smooth for him, just having an older student to guide him through all the ins and outs of campus life and city life.
That's great, just to have an advocate around, to have that support and have that relationship. That's wonderful. You might think who you can help connect your students to, huh?
So my oldest son taught me quite a life lesson. I would always give him advice, and he would always say, "Yes, Dad," and then I would notice he didn't do it. And finally, one day, I realized he's living his life, not my life, and I just need to back off. And so ever since then, as my wife says, it's about listening to your kids, not projecting onto them what you want.
That's such a hard lesson. Yeah, I made my kids, yay, way to go. You get cheers for that one. I made my kids do a lot of music lessons because I knew they were going to be musicians like I wanted them to be. It didn't work out. Nobody's playing any music anymore except me. Anyway, we should probably move on. I don't have a lot more here. I think that was great use of time. I'm just going to cover kind of a laundry list of things that most of which I think you guys have identified. But our career counselors here, most of them generally as a rule have a master's degree in counseling. And some of the things you're talking about are things we study for 2 years in a master's program to figure out how to do this. So it's hard to do just good basic listening. It takes such patience and commitment and discipline. But when you can get to that space where you're not judging and you're just letting students talk, and we actually learn these things. If any of you know counseling, lean in and listen and make eye contact. I mean, basic counseling skills, but it's amazing what magic that works. I remember going to a presentation where a seasoned career counselor was saying, really, I've learned all these tricks and things over my career, but really the listening is the most important thing I do. It's just sitting in that chair and listening to someone talk. And so if you can work on that skill, that's great. And the reason it works, of course, in case it's not obvious, is this, whoever you're listening to starts to solve their own problems. They hear their own voice and they're hearing their own thinking. And so it really is just kind of a magical way to really help people in all situations, and particularly today we're talking about that career path. So I think we've talked about a few of these. There's one more tangible one at the bottom that I just want to mention, that parents can really play a role. One of our other career learning outcomes is going to be about social capital, which is to say, how do you build connections with people? It's a hard thing to learn. It's, I showed you maroon and gold, we can give you contacts, but the skill of contacting that person and having the conversation with them is still a skill. We always encourage people to start easy with that. If you have friends or family or people that might be good for your students to talk to, even aunts and uncles, that just would make it really easy to get started. That's another important role you could play. I always remember my uncle, who was in big business, introduced me to somebody, and I went and had lunch, and I didn't ask any questions. I didn't know at all what to do with that. So we provide a lot of support around that. Of course, have them talk to their career counselor for some support on that. I mentioned this book, and some of my thinking here comes from Marjorie Savage, who was our parent coordinator here for a while, and she wrote this book, and I think it still holds up if you want to take a look at that. So I'm going to go back so you can do that, but I guess I'm done, and I think I have 3 minutes for questions. What questions do you have about anything? Yes.
I apologize.
Here, we'll wait for that, Mike. I'm sorry.
I apologize. I got here late. So if you covered this at the beginning of your presentation. But my question is, in terms of career services, what's the best way for our students to access them? Because I've asked my kid, who's a senior, multiple times, what does the school have for you for career services? And she's like,
I know, that's so hard. It's a hard one. We try so hard to let them know we're here. So that's why we're talking to you too. I just switched to career.umn.edu again. Career, UMN, you'll get back here. And the very first thing you'll see is find a career office. I'm just gonna demonstrate this. Find your career office. What major is your student?
theater.
Theater is gonna be in the College of Liberal Arts. They have a fantastic career center. And there's their Career Center website. You could have done that with any of those, of course. You just have to know what college your student is in. And so you can see just a whole range of information here for students in the College of Liberal Arts. I'm not sure what all they have on this page. I thought it would be there. Make an appointment. There it is. If you want to talk to a human one-on-one, that's how you do it. But before you do that, we do encourage you, look over the website. That's why we're teaching classes. We have 50,000 students around here. We do encourage students to try to do some of that pre-work on their own. But if they want that conversation with the human one-on-one who's trained to do this, we have fantastic staff who are available. They're my favorite people in the world, I'll tell you. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
This will be our last question, I'm afraid. Sorry. I'll stay after, but go ahead.
We're from California, and my daughter's, she's only a freshman, but she's, always trying to, get ahead. And so she's already talking about her options for internships. And she's like, they have all these great companies around here, but I feel like it's all in Minneapolis. It's all in Minnesota. So is there anything, to talk about internships in the future, should she set an appointment with a career counselor? Or?
Yes. In that situation, I think there's some other strategies for how to make connections in other cities, and that goes for Minnesota students that want to go elsewhere too. So there's some other strategies, and I won't go into all of that, but I would see a career counselor. Handshake will provide information elsewhere. There's other websites that would provide information. There would be networking strategies, how to reach our alumni that are in California, which of course there are many. So yeah, there would be a lot of other strategies. But I would say go deep and develop that strategy with her career counselor, or career coach, as they call them in Carlson. All right. I'm still asking for questions, but I'm not supposed to. I'm supposed to be done. So it's so nice to talk with you. I've learned a lot from this. It's really been enjoyable to just kind of think about all this. And good luck to all of you. I'll be around, I think, out there in the foyer. They're pointing me out there. If you do have other questions, I'm happy to talk more. Thank you all.